The silk of my nightgown slipped off my shoulders and whispered to the cold tile floor as steam curled upward from the shower. Most mornings, this was my sanctuary, warm, private, untouched. But not that morning. That morning, I felt eyes on me. Not just any eyes. His. Through the slightly open door, Ryan stood not as a boy anymore, but as something else. Something I didn't know I was still capable of awakening. If you've ever stood still in the moment, when the line between right and wrong blurred like steam on glass, you'll understand what I mean. Hit subscribe if you're ready for stories that go where others are afraid to go, real raw, and sometimes too honest. And if you've ever held on to a secret you couldn't speak aloud, drop a single dot in the comments. I'll know what it means. After the pandemic, silence became part of the furniture. It wrapped around this lake house, like the mist that crept across the water every morning, soft, steady, inescapable. For years, my husband and I had called this place our escape. Now it just felt like something we had both escaped from. He wasn't home much anymore, even less after COVID. Conferences, travel, business dinners, things that sounded important but rarely included me. I stayed behind with the stillness, the carefully placed furniture, the untouched second bedroom, and a kettle that whistled for no one. Then Ryan arrived. He came with little warning. My husband told me, over the phone casually, Ryan's moving in for a while. His mom's abroad. He needs somewhere stable. His voice made it sound like a weather report. Predictable. Temporary. Ryan was 19. All long limbs and quiet glances. He'd grown up mostly away from us, a Christmas here, a birthday card there. Now he was in my house, at my table, sleeping upstairs. The first night, I made him grilled cheese and tomato soup. Something comforting, something simple. He thanked me twice, once out loud, and once with a look that lingered just a little too long for a boy I hadn't raised. In the days that followed, we settled into a quiet rhythm, polite, distant. I worked in the garden. He worked out in the garage. We met in the kitchen, sometimes brief intersections between separate orbits. But slowly, things began to shift. I noticed how he moved. The way he touched things gently, as if they might break. The way he stood too long at the kitchen window, staring out at the lake, like he was trying to remember something that never belonged to him. And then I noticed something more dangerous the way I noticed. Not like a parent. Not like a hostess. Like a woman who hadn't been seen in a very long time. At night, I would lie in bed and listen for the sound of his door closing, for the footsteps on the landing, for the faint hum of music from his earbuds. Every detail, every ordinary sound felt too loud in the quiet. I blamed the isolation at first, the months of masks and distance, the craving for connection, even the wrong kind. But that didn't explain how my skin warmed when I heard him laugh, or why I started keeping my robe tied just a little looser in the mornings. It wasn't planned, but it had already begun. It was just after 7 when I stepped into the bathroom, the summer light already sliding gently across the lake and into the window above the tub. The glass fogged quickly. Warm steam rose around me like a familiar lover, soft knowing, undemanding. The tile was cool under my bare feet. The air smelled faintly of lavender soap and cedar wood. For a few minutes, I wasn't a wife. I wasn't a stepmother. I was just a woman, alone, bare breathing. I let my robe fall. It made the quietest sound as it touched the floor, a silk sigh. I stepped into the shower and closed my eyes as the water traced down my spine. It was like being erased and rewritten at the same time. And then I felt it, a shift in the air, a presence, a weight somewhere beyond the steam. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. There's a kind of silence that only exists when someone is trying not to make a sound, and it's louder than any noise. Through the foggy glass and the half-open door, I felt his eyes. Not just looking, watching. Like he wasn't sure what he had stumbled into. Like he didn't know if he should leave or stay. Ryan. The name barely formed in my mind before my skin reacted tighter, more aware. The water suddenly felt warmer. My heart beat louder. My breath shallower. He didn't speak. Neither did I. The only sound was water falling drop after drop against tile and skin. I moved slowly, letting the water run across my collarbone down the curve of my side. My back was to the door. I imagined what he saw. Not clearly, not fully, just suggestion. The shape of me blurred in steam and glass. A silhouette. A memory in the making. I should have closed the door. But I didn't. Instead, I tilted my head back and exhaled. Let the steam carry whatever this was up into the air. Maybe it would disappear. But it didn't. And I could feel him still standing there, breathing, just as shallow, frozen in place. I don't know how long we stayed like that, a few seconds, maybe less. But it stretched, grew heavy, electric. Then finally, the sound of retreat, his steps soft against the wood floor. The door clicking gently closed behind him. Still, I didn't move. I stood under the water, my eyes still shut, my body humming with something I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not shame, not yet. The morning after the bathroom, we didn't speak of it, but something had shifted. Not in what we said, but in everything in between. He didn't look at me the same. I didn't look away fast enough. In the kitchen, we moved carefully around each other. He passed me the mug a little too slowly. I held it a little too long. Our fingers brushed, and neither of us flinched. When I spoke, my voice felt softer. When he answered, he seemed to listen more closely than he needed to. We talked about nothing, whether groceries, the weeds in the garden, but the silence that came after always felt heavier, like we were both waiting for a word that never arrived. I caught myself watching him too long, at the sink as he dried his hands, in the hallway as he reached up to adjust the smoke detector. There was something in the curve of his back, in the quiet way he moved, something that kept tugging at the corners of my attention. I told myself it was nothing, that it would pass, but it didn't. It grew. Like a current beneath calm water, invisible but undeniable. And then one night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, the bed too cold. I walked out into the hallway, barefoot robe loosely tied, and passed by the living room. He was there, asleep on the couch, one arm slung over his chest, the television still humming with blue light. His face, usually so guarded, was completely at peace, relaxed, vulnerable. I stood there longer than I should have. The lamp in the corner cast a soft amber glow across his skin. His breathing was steady, his lips just slightly parted. There was something heartbreakingly young about the way he slept, and something completely grown in the length of his legs stretched out under the throw blanket. I walked closer, quietly, carefully. I don't know why. I told myself I was checking if he was cold, that I would drape another blanket, that I'd turn off the TV. But I didn't. I just stood there, so close I could see the rise and fall of his chest. So close I could smell his shampoo, still clinging faintly from his shower. My hand rose almost without permission. It hovered just above his cheek, trembling slightly. inches away from skin I had no right to touch. I could feel the heat of him, the pull. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. And then just like that, I stepped back. My hand fell. I turned off the television, adjusted the blanket like I should have. Then I walked away. My chest ached in a way that was not sadness, not desire, but something in between. I didn't sleep that night. I heard him before I saw him. A faint shuffle in the kitchen, the soft clink of glass. The house was dark, but not asleep, not entirely. Like something in it still waited to exhale. I walked in still, in my robe, still barefoot. The tile cool beneath my skin, the hallway silent behind me. I found him by the counter, shirtless again, water in hand, staring at nothing. He turned slowly when he sensed me. I thought I was dreaming last night, he said quietly, not looking away, but I don't think I was. My breath caught. I think you were there, he added. I felt it. The air changed. I didn't deny it. I didn't confirm it. I only stepped closer. He set the glass down. I couldn't stop thinking about it, he said. About you. There was no distance left between us now. I don't want to pretend I don't feel this, he whispered. Neither did I. His hand moved to my waist first. My robe shifted under his fingers, silk against skin, breath against breath. I reached for him, palm against the warmth of his chest, feeling the steady thunder of his heart beneath my touch. His forehead leaned into mine, a pause long aching. Then his lips found me. They were unsure at first, testing, almost reverent. Mine answered, with hunger, but something softer too, something tender. His hand moved up my back, then down again, sliding under the edge of my robe. My body arched toward him, like it already knew the next step. When he picked me up, I didn't resist. I wrapped around him, legs, arms, breath. He carried me down the hallway, past the living room, past all the places where this shouldn't have happened. We entered my bedroom. The door closed. He placed me gently on the bed, like a secret finally being told. I felt the robe slide from my shoulders, not from gravity, but choice. His hands followed the path down my arms, slow, deliberate. When our skin finally met completely, it wasn't shocking. It was inevitable. His breath hit my neck before his lips ever did. When our hips touched, I felt the tension break, not like something snapped, but like something finally gave in. We didn't speak. We moved in rhythm, first uncertain, then certain, then nothing else mattered. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was deep in exploration, a surrender, a homecoming. His body pressed into mine until I couldn't tell where he ended, and I began. I let him in completely, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch at the feeling of being known. I don't remember who turned off the lamp, only that the room dimmed, and everything else, all the years, the reasons, the rules disappeared in a single closing breath. The next thing I remember was morning. The sheets were tangled around our legs. His arm was still draped across my waist, warm and heavy. My robe lay forgotten on the floor. His breath tickled the back of my neck, slow and steady, like he'd finally exhaled after holding it in for too long. Light spilled through the window, soft and golden, catching the curve of my bare shoulder. It painted us together, quiet, close undone. We had crossed a line, and we hadn't turned back. The sun had risen higher by the time I opened my eyes. I didn't move at first. I didn't want to. Ryan's breath was still warm on the back of my neck, and the hush of the room felt sacred, like we'd stepped out of time just for one night. I stared at the wall, half wrapped in the sheet, and listened to his heartbeat where his chest met my spine. We didn't say anything. There was no need to. Some truths are spoken through silence, through the way a hand lingers just a second longer, or the way a body curves inward rather than pulling away. Eventually, he stirred. His fingers brushed my shoulder, not to wake me, not to leave. Just to be sure I was still there. I turned my head. Our eyes met. That was all. No apology, no explanation, no plan. Just a quiet, undeniable knowing. The kind that sits in your chest long after the moment has passed. Later he made coffee. I made toast. We moved around the kitchen in silence, not like strangers, not like lovers, but something in between. Something delicate, something still unnamed. And that silence, it stayed with me. Long after the coffee cooled, long after his footsteps faded. Because what happened between us wasn't just about that night. It was about something much deeper, something many of us carry, but never speak of. Not every love comes with a label. Not every connection makes sense on paper. Sometimes it's not about what's right or wrong, but what's real. And what we deny in silence often becomes the loudest part of our lives. Diana's story isn't just about desire. It's about what happens when the heart is starved for too long, when we go years without being touched, not just on the skin, but in the soul. In that quiet, we start to forget we're still alive. And sometimes it takes one unexpected moment, one glance, too long, one hand, too close to remind us that we're still here, still capable of feeling, still needing something. This isn't a story about breaking rules. It's about what happens when the rules no longer make sense for the life we're trying to live. And maybe, just maybe, our biggest betrayals aren't to others, but to the parts of ourselves we keep buried. If this story made you feel something longing regret, or even just curiosity, hit the like button. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in her place? And don't forget to subscribe for more true emotional stories that explore the deepest corners of the human heart.